because a shared load means that all those individual muscles don't have enough of a stimulus to cause a muscle growth response. Hey, welcome to Fitness Freedom Athletes, helping you build muscle, shed fat, and transform your body from home with a suspension trainer, resistance band, body weight, and nutrition optimization to gain fitness freedom. Hey guys, hope you're doing well. Coach Adam here. Okay, question today. This is based off a few questions that come in quite regularly. It's all about like not being able to feel it when you're working out, or specifically when you're trying to target an area or do a specific exercise. And we can categorize that into two elements, which is movement-centric technique and muscle-centric technique. And I'm going to define the difference and talk about muscle-centric technique because it's the biggest sort of lever you can pull for growth of lean muscle and better workouts and better mind-muscle connection. So movement-centric technique is a technique we see all the time, right? Movement-centric technique is using multiple muscles from getting to point A to point B, or moving a weight from point A to point B. The body wants to be efficient, right? Genetically, we're very efficient. We use as many muscles as we can to move and to move objects, and that's great, okay? It's really good teamwork by the body. The problem with that type of movement exercise is the load is shared across multiple muscles. Now you can see it's a problem if we want to develop that muscle, because a shared load means that all those individual muscles don't have enough of a stimulus to cause a muscle growth response. Now it's great for powerlifting or just everyday living, but if you want to actually build lean muscle in the most effective way from short workouts with just a suspension trainer, your body weight, resistance band, you need to shift to muscle-centric technique, muscle-centric. Now, I used to do movement-centric technique all the time in the gym, and it's the reason why I spent years and got very little gains, because all I did was be driven by my ego. I just used to lift as heavy as I could and do as many reps as I could and just bash them out, not thinking about how I was moving or how I was exercising, just focus on the weight, numbers, and looking good. It was ego-driven, right? As soon as I shifted my perspective and I learned about muscle-centric technique years ago, I changed my whole training approach. I even left the gym and went into using a suspension trainer. Separate story, origin story. Now, the difference is, with muscle-centric technique, we first think, right, what muscle do I want to focus on? So say it's your chest. We target the muscle, we isolate it, and we try and minimize the amount of help that other muscles give it. So when you isolate a muscle on its own, it's much, much weaker, okay? So you can use lighter loads like just your body weight to cause a greater muscle building stimulus. Now, there's two parts to muscle-centric technique. One is simply the technique, so it's how you biomechanically move and how you do the exercise movement to isolate that area. The second is your mind-muscle connection. It's your ability to squeeze the muscle with your mind, the contraction, controlling your muscles mindfully, placing your mind inside the muscle. So for example, I don't have to bend my arm here to squeeze my bicep, because I can literally just squeeze by focusing. I can activate and tense and squeeze and contract the muscle really hard, even though my arm is relatively straight. Now, if I start to straighten it, I use action as well, then I get double the sort of the tension, the contraction, all right? Because I'm using mechanical movement and mindful connection, okay? That's what you want to pair together to do muscle-centric technique. That's what creates greater muscle building stimuluses. Now, when we're talking about things like technique, not just the mind, there's little cues and little techniques you can do for every single exercise, ranging from beginner to advanced, to isolate a muscle more, to give more of a muscle-centric effect. Now, I get questions like, but I still feel it a little bit in like my triceps and my front shoulders. It's impossible to only focus 100% and isolate a muscle 100%. If we did that, we'd literally collapse. There will always be some secondary and stabilizing muscles working. The point is to try and eliminate how much they are helping and to try and maximize how much load the main muscle has to use, because that's when you get the greatest stimulus, okay? So it's not a case of worrying, oh, I can still feel it a bit. If you still feel a bit, that's all right, as long as it's not too much. The key is, can you really feel it in the primary muscle? If you can't feel it in the primary muscle at all, really, then yes, then you've got to be like, something's not right. Either I'm not focusing, I'm not contracting, I'm not, channeling my inner sort of mindfulness to that muscle, or I'm not using the right technique for that exercise to isolate it. I'm not using the right movement to do it, okay? So that's what you always want to focus on with your workouts. Now, this is a different story if you want to power lift, or you just want to do like, I don't know, a workout where it's all about 100 reps, or sometimes I do 100 rep workouts where it's like 100 rep press ups, 100 rep squats, 100 rep TRX curls. With those, I'm just going crazy. Like, I'm just trying to get to the number as fast as possible. And because I'm doing such large volume, such high volume, you eventually do get fatigue, but it's not what I'd say the most effective way to build muscle and sculpt. It's just something to throw in there now and then, you know. It sort of changes things up. The same principle if you're powerlifting. If you want to lift a heavy weight, heavy as you can go, you don't want to isolate muscles down. You want to try and use as many muscles as possible to move that load and weight. You want to work as a team, lifting the weight, okay? So that's the difference between sort of looking to get the most out of your workouts, to build each area of your body, to get stronger, to sculpt your body and shape it, and to get better movement. And with muscle-centric technique, you have to slow down, because to isolate a muscle, to focus on your form, your technique, you have to, one, slow down, because you really need to control and make sure you're doing the action right and think about it until it becomes habitual. So when you need to slow down, what was the point? You need to slow down and you need to maximize tension, okay? So those two work hand in hand. So when you slow down, you want to maximize tension. Now, maximizing tension, it works hand in hand because the key growth mechanism to build muscle is time under tension for a muscle, all right? So when you do slow down to focus on your technique, to get better at isolating, it's a double whammy, because you're then placing the muscle under larger amounts of time, so you get a better growth, okay? Science tells us that muscles are built time under tension. So slowing down, taking your time, focusing on form and technique helps with this. And it also means you get less injury because you're not rushing. When you isolate a muscle and you try and just put the load on it, this is especially the case in squats, you take away the load from the joints and you place the load on the muscle. So when you're bending your knees, you're not loading through the joint, which a lot of people do with squats. They don't realize it because all they're focusing on is going up and down, rather than focusing on the muscle contracting and holding the weight as you move. And what happens is the joint takes the weight and the load, so the joint wears out. When you load a muscle and you build the muscle, they support the joint. So the load goes through the muscles and not the joint. So one, you get less injuries and you get better movement patterns. And two, you get better development because you're putting the load through the actual muscles to focus on it. An example I can give you, rather than just squatting up and down, think, what do I want to target? Do I want to target my front of my thighs, my quads? Or do I want to target the back of my legs? My hamstrings and my glutes? If you want to target your quads, you know, you want to do a sort of minimal narrow-footed stance, and you want to push your feet out against the floor constantly as you go up and down, because that action, the constant pushing of your feet, will put the load on your quad muscles, especially your outer quads. If you want to do squats where you're focusing on your hamstrings and your glutes, you want a wider stance, and you want to focus on trying to like squeeze a stability ball between your bum and your heels constantly. So you're constantly squeezing. And as you go down, you don't drop down, you pull yourself down. So you squeeze your hamstrings and your glutes to contract and pull down. Pause, contract them again to push up, and don't straighten your legs at the top, because then the load goes on the front of your legs. So all these little cues and all these little lessons, these tiny little things compound and mount up. And that's how you can choose how to load muscles and how you can grow those muscles effectively. This is like a bodybuilding approach essentially, but the term bodybuilding scares people off because it's like, oh my God, I don't want to bodybuild. I'm going to be like the Hulk. You won't be like the Hulk. You'll be lucky just to develop some good quality muscle that shows through when you take your top off or you're wearing a bikini, because it does take time, it takes practice, okay? So that's why people shy away from it, but it's actually a better way to work out if you have limited time, if you're not a gym user. You know, I'm a dad myself. I don't have time to use a gym. I've got kids, I run a business. I do workouts between nap times, you know, and I squeeze them in, and I want to get the most bang for my buck. I can't be injured because I'm always moving. I'm always carrying the kids. I'm running here, there, everywhere for the business, for family, you know. So for me, having a functional body, yes, that looks good, but also that supports my busy lifestyle is very important. This would be different if I was talking, you know, I'm coming up to 40 now. If I was talking to 22-year-old Adam who lifted with his balls and not his brains, the key principle would be, sod all that. I want to be in a gym lifting heavy as I can, looking good, wearing tight t-shirts, flexing because it was ego driven, right? And you think because you walk into a gym and that's the culture, that's what you should do. But if you lift with your brain and you work out with your brain and not your balls, you will get much better results that are more sustainable, that promote longevity, that create healthy muscles, that support joints and support your lifestyle. Okay? So that's the focus. That's the difference between muscle-centric technique and movement-centric technique. Examples of movement-centric technique are aerobics, running, powerlifting, all these TRX suspension cleaning classes that you see that are HIIT. The same with bodyweight ones that are HIIT. They're all movement-centric technique because you're using multiple muscles to move. Yes, you might work up a little sweat and things like that, but you probably won't see much progression in terms of how your body shape changes, and you might cause injury and you won't build a solid strength muscle foundation because you're not looking at areas and targeting them. Those things are good to work in with strength building. As you get older, you want to be doing 70-80% muscle building, 20-30% cardio HIIT stuff. The priority should be on strength and muscle. Muscle is life. It controls so many mechanisms within your body, so you've got to prioritize that and focus on building that so the rest of your body works in holistic harmony. Okay, I hope that helps. That's the difference between muscle-centric technique and movement-centric technique. As always, guys, any questions, just fire them over to me, put them in the questionnaire below the coaching calls and the support forum, and I'll answer them. And I hope you have a fantastic weekend. Keep training, focus on movement-centric, muscle-centric technique, mind-muscle connection, and slowing down. Focus on technique mastery before hard work, all right? Okay, I'll see you next time.